Arsenal 0, Liverpool 2. Diogo Jota, the slaughter double, sends the Reds to the Carabao Cup final at Wembley after they beat Arsenal 2-0 at the Emirates Stadium in the second leg of the League Cup semi-final. Well, joining me, Patrick Smith, to go through all of this is Matt Addison. And Matt, are you as buzzing as I am with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. A big night for Liverpool. It was obviously one that you'd fancy them to go and do the business, even without Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane. But I think after a shaky start, I think it's fair to say Liverpool sort of grew into that game. And yeah, really impressive from them in the end to be able to get themselves through to that final, to keep a clean sheet. Obviously, it was a fairly intense atmosphere, certainly until they went 1 or 2 goals up. But yeah, really, really impressive. And another trip to Wembley is never going to be a bad thing.
We're going to have to start with the man of the moment, Diogo Jota. Sometimes in the shadow of Salah and Mane, but he's really stepped up tonight, Matt, hasn't he? 2 unbelievable goals from him to send us through. How good was he in your thoughts?
Yeah, just brilliant again. It's 2 goals that take him ahead of his tally from last season already. Obviously now 14 goals for him, only got 13 in the entirety of his first season at Liverpool. So yeah, really impressive. We know what he's about. A slaughter, as we say so frequently. He's just putting them in the back of the net so regularly. And I think it gets forgotten a little bit, to be honest, that obviously he's the second top scorer in the Premier League as well, behind only Mohamed Salah, which is no bad thing for any player to be behind him. So yeah, it's just been so consistent from him this season. He's stepped up. We knew he was going to have to do something big for Liverpool during AFCON, and that's what he's been able to do. He's fired them into a cup final. He can't have played too many semi-finals actually in his career, if any, and just seemed to really enjoy the occasion. So yeah, absolutely superb from him, decisive in the right moments. And he knew, didn't he, that second one, he knew he was onside. And thankfully VAR is in the competition, and Liverpool were able to get that one counted.
Yeah, he really did take it in stride. The composure from him, especially in a big semi-final away from home, I clearly don't think it matters to him. But Curtis Jones as well, another outstanding performance in the midfield. It's so good to have him back, Matt, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant, actually. He was able to drive forward and do a little bit more of what we know that he can do. I think in the first game against Arsenal, it was fairly difficult for Liverpool to be able to break into those spaces. But obviously at home, Arsenal with 11 players as well for most of it. Obviously, Partey gets sent off at the end, but there's obviously going to be gaps that get sort of opened up. And I think Curtis Jones is a perfect player, really, to be able to exploit them. So yeah, it was impressive from him. I'd love to see him, driving forward from deep with the ball. I think he's one of those players that you can kind of give him the ball and know that you can kind of put your foot on it. A bit like Gini Wijnaldum. I know he's a slightly different player, but there was a few occasions tonight where a few of the Arsenal players bounced off him, and it did remind me a little bit of Wijnaldum. Obviously, when Liverpool are under a little bit of pressure, you need someone who can just keep hold of the ball, really. As long as you've got the ball, you're not going to be in any sort of danger. So yeah, it was impressive from him, a really mature performance. And I think we do forget sometimes that he is still only 20. So plenty of improvement still to come from Curtis Jones. But yeah, in a semi-final, a big game against a decent team, a team that has got a lot of praise recently. Maybe not quite as good as a few people maybe have thought they've been of late. I know, obviously, did pretty well against Manchester City, but still lost. They're still, a quality level below Liverpool, but they are a decent opponent. And I thought Curtis Jones was one of the best players on the pitch tonight.
Well, it was a completely different Arsenal. It would sound weird to say, but then I suppose it makes sense that it was almost an easier game today, that they had 11 players rather than the 10 at Anfield. Played into our hands much more, Matt, didn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's just the kind of game that we thought it would be, to be honest. We knew that Arsenal would have to go for it. I think Mikel Arteta said at the start, he was asked about his team, and on Sky Sports that the interviewer kind of said, well, you've gone very attacking there. And he kind of said, well, these are the 11 players that we've got. We don't really have anybody else. So it was one of those where Arsenal were always probably going to go for it. Obviously, when you're playing Martin Odegaard as one of your 2 holding midfielders, I think that sort of suggests the way that the game is going to go. But I thought that being the case, Liverpool did quite well actually to control it. That's something they've struggled with at times. Thinking of games, say against Brentford or Brighton, or teams not anywhere near with the same quality that Arsenal have got. But we have seen them at times just let the game be end to end, not be able to put their foot on the ball and obviously concede goals. But I think it was like that for the first 15 or 20 minutes. But as soon as Liverpool go a goal in front, it completely changes it. So yeah, it comes back to Diogo Jota again in terms of taking the chances at the right time. But yeah, I thought Liverpool were really good tonight in terms of managing the way that the game went. As soon as they went a goal up, you thought Arsenal probably might score at some point. Obviously, they don't in the end. But at the same time, you always felt that if Liverpool had to go and get a second or a third, they could, if they needed to, go and do that. So, yeah, really promising.
Well, it's a very attacking lineup from Arsenal. Naturally, with that, they're going to have a few chances. But the boys at the back in yellow did very well tonight, Matt, didn't they, to keep them quiet?
Yeah, there was some good performances in there. I saw a bit of criticism from Trent Alexander-Arnold after 2 or 3 minutes, and I think that gets levelled at him a lot. I think it gets levelled at him a lot quicker than lots of other players because of how good he is on the ball. And obviously, we know the quality. We saw that in terms of the first goal. His part in that, the position that he takes up, I thought was really interesting. But it's obviously something we've seen a lot from Liverpool this season. And to be honest, after that first 10-minute spell where Arsenal are on top, I think Trent dealt pretty well with Martinelli. I think Martinelli's a really good footballer. He's obviously going to cause you problems at certain times. And obviously with Kaide Gordon in front, it wasn't necessarily a normal level of protection, I suppose, from him. Obviously, Gordon's doing his best, but he's not integrated fully into the Liverpool system. He's not quite at the level that he will be in a couple of years' time. So I think it was understandable, to be honest, that Martinelli got the better of him at times. But generally, overall, I think he's come out on top in that duel. So he was good. I think Joel Matip had a shaky half. Obviously, gets taken off at half time, but Robertson and Van Dijk sort of guided him through and got him through to the point in which he gets taken off the pitch. So, yeah, it was never a situation where you really were fearful that Liverpool were under the cosh. Certainly, after that first 10 minutes, they were relatively comfortable. And Virgil van Dijk, I thought, was excellent. There's a few times where he was kind of turned and running back towards his own goal, which at times this season he's maybe not looked particularly comfortable with, but a combination maybe of Emil Smith-Rowe making the wrong pass or Odegaard making the wrong pass and him being in the right position, I think was important. So, yeah, he looked a lot better tonight in a kind of frantic game, which again is another big positive. But yeah, for Liverpool, it wasn't a perfect performance defensively, but if you keep a clean sheet, you get yourself to Wembley, you can't complain.
You did mention in there about Kaide Gordon. You think it was another step too soon for him, perhaps? Struggled a little bit tonight, Matt, didn't he?
Yeah, he didn't have loads of touches. I thought some of the passes into him were not the easiest to control. It wasn't as if they were put into easy areas for him to get on the ball and get
up against a very good left back in Tierney as well.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, he's coming up against a very experienced player. So, I mean, the performance wasn't brilliant, but it wasn't poor by any stretch. And I think you can see in terms of the movements he makes, the positions that he gets himself into, you can really sort of see why Jurgen Klopp felt comfortable. I think he's obviously integrated pretty well into the system so far. He's obviously a more natural right-sided player than Takumi Minamino. I mean, I would question in terms of the long term what it means for Minamino. I actually thought he did pretty well when he came on, actually. But the fact that a 17-year-old was picked ahead of him probably doesn't say a great amount for what his long-term future holds. But look, Liverpool have got the job done. I thought Kaide Gordon was really good at sort of coming in and not being fazed by the occasion, which, if nothing else, he's managed to do that. There'll be plenty more opportunities for him in the future, and I'm sure we'll see him again in the Premier League, not in the not too distant future.
Well, the question on everyone's lips, Matt: will we go all the way? We've got another clash with Chelsea, another one to look forward to against them.
Yeah, it'll be a great final. I think you've got to fancy Liverpool on a one-off occasion against anyone, to be honest. I think Chelsea will obviously fancy themselves. There'll be players back from AFCON. It's not to the end of February, this game, so there's still plenty of time to kind of see which changes, which players are back, who's in the team. Hopefully, Thiago and various others that are missing at the moment. Harvey Elliott, I'm sure, will be back up to full speed by then. So it could be a very different Liverpool 11 that takes to the pitch compared to the one that was out there tonight. But look, whoever Liverpool play on a one-off game, you'd fancy them, I think, against anyone. So look, we know that the quality that Chelsea have. I still think Liverpool are a better team. Chelsea maybe have the better squad, but on a one-off occasion, I think you've really got to fancy Liverpool. So yeah, they've put themselves in a position where they can go and win it. So yeah, why not? Why not? It could be the first of a couple of trophies this season, I think.
Well, the prospect of Harvey Elliott coming back is an exciting one, but not as exciting as a trip to Wembley, which will be on February the 27th against Chelsea. I'm sure we'll all be eagerly anticipating that one. Matt, thank you for joining me there. That's all we've got time for today. And thank you to all of you as well for watching. We'll be back again for the debrief for the League Cup final on the 20th of February against Chelsea. But until then, it's goodbye for now.